Hey, you guys, in light of Nellie and Israel's testimony on the Love Agenda with Rob Wilson last night, I wanted to put together this compilation in conjunction with their testimony, along with a few clips that was sent to me early on in my research about Bakersfield and what was going on there and what happened. There is a huge chunk of their testimony towards the end that I am going to share and tie into an email that one of the XV1 Bakersfield members received, along with portions of the meeting that Mike had with them, along with a midweek huddle and a global gathering, which was basically a cover up and for what happened to Bakersfield and the blaming and shaming of Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie and leaders stemming from Eddie, Josh, Mike, even Julie not taking full accountability. And truly sincerely apologizing without the crocodile tears to the people of V1 Bakersfield. And you say, Nikita, how do you know that? Why do you think they're unrepentant? It's because it's still happening, and there's many more stories that are going to be told about the abuses that have been happening, not just by the top, but from his mother and from various other people within the V1 Church organization. So the first thing I am going to do is I am going to play a chunk of Nellie and Israel's testimony. Please let me know if you can hear it because it is from my computer.
With the clothing line that these people have, but personally, me and Israel.
Oh, and I did speed it up a little bit. It is 1.5. So if you have a hard time understanding it, please go to the Love Agenda's YouTube page and listen on your own. I also put in snippets on my page that you can go and just automatically connect to his page, okay?
Spend thousands of dollars on books, on journals, on B1 Women's collective that no one from B1 Women, the mother of the house, which is Julie Signorelli, ever messaged me or any of the women at B1 Bakersfield when everything came crumbling down. So I don't know how they speak of being the mother of the house when I've never ever spoken. I've spoken to her in New York, but when everything came crumbling down, she never called any of the women here in Bakersfield. She never mothered us. She never did any of that. And so we spent a lot of money. We were fully submitted to the process. We served so much. We gave financially. We did it all. And so when we came back, February, it was going to be February, and we were already promoting the next revival service that Mike was going to come, because at this point, Mike was already going to come and he was going to make these people pastors. So that was really scary at this point. And he
was saying it on his YouTube channels that he was
about to pastor these two pastors. And so we're already starting the promotion. This happened end of January when we started promoting. Keep in mind, our church is bigger already. There's at this point, there's one elder couple than us. They're like in their late 60s, and then Israel and me, and then all the young people. And so we get Pastor Patrick calls us and calls Israel, actually.
Yeah, he calls me and he was like, hey, Pastor Mike is coming. I'm going to put you on an assignment to reach out to people that have left V1 and invite them back and tell them that V1 has changed. There's been change going on, and about Pastor Mike coming to invite them again. And at this point, I didn't agree with him. I was like, okay, nothing has changed, but I'm going to be obedient to what you're putting me to do, and I'm going to invite these people. So then we started reaching out to people that, first we told, hey, can I do that? Like, can I reach out to people? Because,
I don't want to
gossip. I don't want to get in trouble for it. They're like, why would you get in trouble for it? Like, we're told not to reach out to anybody that leaves. They're like, no, you contact them and you find out why they left and invite them back. Tell them that V1 has changed. It's no longer how it used to be. And I was like, okay. So then my wife got a hold of the females. She would call the females, I'll call the males. And in this process, we find out that so many people are hurt. So many people are just, were left with being disrespected, not loved on, mistreated.
And during this time, her father gets sick. The leader of the house, Crystal's dad, gets sick. So I offered, because I knew she was really busy with her work, and I offered to cook for him. I said, hey, I know your dad's sick. He's in the hospital. I said, can I cook for him and take him some food so he can have for a couple of days? And she's like, yeah, I would appreciate that. So I cooked a meal for him. And at this point, I'm calling, but she's not answering. So I tell Israel, can you please get a hold of Wesley and ask him if we can get a hold of Crystal, because I want to deliver this to her dad. I know he's sick. He just got out of surgery. And he's like, yeah, let me call him. So Wesley gives us the address. We just follow the address. We're thinking, this is her job, her place of employment. We get there, and there's no sign, there's nothing. And I said, Israel, this is the address he gives us. He's like, okay. I said, go through the side. And Israel goes to the side. Yeah, Wesley tells.
Wesley's like, yeah, don't worry. I was like, hey, there's no doors. He's like, yeah, there's a door in the back by the alley. he goes, just sorry about that. He goes, just knock on the door. So I get off my car, and the door has like a password, and I hear loud music. I can't really, you can't really go in there. So I just bang on the door, bang on it. And when this girl comes out of the door, she's dressed very provocative. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm in the wrong place. I was looking for Crystal, but this is the address I got. She was like, oh, and drinking that. Then I recognized her from the revival service that she came to in Bakersfield. So I was like, oh, this is her. Okay. So then she was like, yeah, she'll be out there right now. And she was like, do you want to come in?
You recognize her from the imaginary Dream Team members that showed up?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think we had some event that she attended.
Oh, okay.
Is it tall girl?
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then so yeah, I recognized her from a previous the event that she came, and I go, she invited me in. She's like, do you want to come in? I was like, no, I'm okay. Just let her know that I'm gonna be in the car. I'm parked out back. So she goes, okay. So then I go into the car, and I just tell my wife, hey, this is super weird. Like, this is not a good place. Like, I was like, I told her what I seen. I told her how I was, and she was like,
So I'm gonna pause that video there, and then I'm gonna go back to it, because there's a midweek huddle on March 26th of this year, where Josh, who is the executive pastor, the profiler of the house, and also a V1 college professor, also talks about how their important thing about V1 is that they place people in the appropriate positions. And that's the kind of church that they want to be. Now, I want you guys to understand that Crystal and Wes were part of V1 College. So Josh, Eddie, and Mike knew who these leaders were, and they were going to place them as pastors. Okay, so here's part of the midweek huddle.
People from their future, where it's like, hey, we see the Lord already doing a work in you. You may not even see it yourself. And so I say all that to say is we want to be the church that has eyes that look into the future and partners with every single person, every single staff member, every single pastor, all of you guys, to say, where is the proper place for you? Where is the proper place for you? Where is it that you're going to find the greatest amount of calling in your life and the greatest amount of sacrifice in your life? And so I'm saying this because we've been working with Pastor Patrick and Pastor...
I'm going to pause there because he's going to do some lying. But so just think about that as you're listening to Nellie and Israel's testimony, right? You've heard how Josh and the leadership, how they look into the future to see where the proper placement is going to be for leaders. And they said they work with everybody. And so it's really important to understand that V1 is really focused on being the fastest growing church. And so with that, they are placing people who have no business being pastors over people, leaders over people. And one of the main things that these people have to go through is V1 college in order to become a leader like this within V1 church. So just keep these things in mind while you're listening to their testimony and their experiences of these leaders that Mike, Eddie, and Josh placed over them, who are all, by the way, V1 College. Eddie is V1 College Dean. Mike is I believe, the president and the founder, and Josh is the executive pastor of V1 and the prophet of the house, and also a professor, quote unquote, of V1 College. Okay.
like, what? So Crystal comes out, and she looks so nervous. And we give her the food, and we take off. And we're just like, man, this is a sad place to be working at. And this is later on we found out through one of my brothers that I reached out to, like, hey, do you realize where she works at? When Pastor Patrick told me to reach out to everybody else that left, he goes, do you know where she works? I was like, hey, yeah, I have questions. Do you know what that is? Like, yeah, I know exactly what that place is. That's the place for high rollers, for pretty much the elite of Bakersfield. You have to be a member. Not just anybody could be part of that.
It's like a gentleman's club. Not an actual gentleman's club where there's like women dancing and stuff like that. It's like a private club for high range people here in Bakersfield, businessmen. They serve alcohol, they smoke, they have all of that going on. And so there's women serving beverages for them. And so this is the place that she works. So we find this out during this process.
And again, these are people who are going to be placed as pastors. Okay.
He explains everything to Israel. During this process, they invite us to go eat to their house. We have no idea why they're inviting us to go eat, but it's just me and my husband. We get there, and Wesley, he cooks for us, and he has everything served really nice. Yeah. And we get there, and she gets there from work. We start talking, and then towards the end of our dinner, she brings out a pastor's mug. And she's like, look, it says pastor's wife. And we're like, oh, that's so cool. Like, oh, that's nice. And me and Israel are thinking like, wow. Then she's like, hey, guess what? Wesley works with me now. And me and Israel, we were like so shocked.
The man, he has a good career.
He has such a good job. Like, why would he have to work there?
He works as a web art.
He works like washing the cups, I don't know, whatever that place is. And so we left there so discouraged because we're thinking now she's a pastor already. But I thought like she's been wanting to be a pastor so bad. Like I just don't imagine her being a pastor already and not telling all of us and not having this big celebration or posting about it on her social media. I told Israel, I don't know, maybe they're waiting for the revival service and then Mike's gonna announce it as our pastor.
That's when we had understood they were going to do it.
Oh yeah, that's how we had understood. And so then we left so discouraged again. And we're still doing this thing of inviting people because we're recruiting people to come back so the revival service can be really big. So then we start talking to these people. I start trying to get a hold of the women. Some women are just, as soon as I mention B1, they ignore me. They don't message me back. One of them told me she's not ready to talk about this. So I respected that. I said, I'm not even going to ask. But so then Israel tells me, hey, I got a hold of this man. Remember him? He was really nice. One time he even took a lot of gift cards for all of us there. I said, yeah, I do remember. He goes, he's telling me this. And like, he's been mistreated too. And he's telling me that he also knows where Crystal works and nobody knows. At this point, I'm just like, I'm so distraught. I run to my room and I start crying and I start praying. And I'm like, Lord, like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, what do you want me to do with this information? I don't want to judge these people. Maybe it's me and Israel that are wrong. Maybe we're wrong. We're just judging them. So I called Pastor Natalie because I have that open communication with her now. And I said, Pastor Natalie, can I please talk to you? And she's like, yes, of course. Call.
I want you guys to also remember this because they talked to Pastor Natalie and they talked to Pastor Patrick. And over a period of time, they begin to put some pieces together. But then when you listen to the midweek huddle, which is what I'm going to share, and the global gathering, which by the way, is public information and was actually sent to me when I first started exposing. They try to act like they had no idea what was going on during this time. Not Pastor Patrick, Natalie, but Mike, Josh, them all. However, Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie found this information and tried to deliver it up. And this is what they're going to share.
Call me, sweetheart. So I call her and I said, Pastor Natalie, this is what's going on. We get to this place and this is what we witnessed and this is what they told us. Now he's working there. She's like, what is this place? So I tell her the name of the place. As she's on the phone with me, she logs into the website. She's like, what kind of sick place is this that you have to be a member to even look at the website? I said, I don't know. I explained to her and she's like, no, absolutely, this is not wrong. From my understanding, I'm thinking she does marketing. That's what she does for a living. I said, well, this is what we witnessed. She's like, let me have Patrick get a hold of Israel and we're going to set up a Zoom meeting with you guys to go over this. And I said, Pastor Natalie, please correct us if we're wrong. If we're doing something wrong and we're just judging these people, like, please tell us. Maybe we're in the wrong. So then
she tells her no, that, that's not, she agrees with her. She's not a good place of employment. And, Pastor Patrick gets a hold of me. I explained to him, hey, I believe that this is my findings. I'm going to tell you my findings of everything that I've done. All the people that have gotten hurt, everybody that I've got a hold of has been mistreated, and a lot of them, the other brother found out where she worked at and didn't agree with it. So then he wants to know more about that. And I go, this is what I believe is the lid on why we're not growing and why people continue to leave. And
we also told them that we were worried for the young people that went there. I said, what happens when they become our pastors? Because that's what they're telling us. That's what Mike is saying, that he's going to come in February, become our pastors. And these young men, even women, if they're struggling, they have to go to this place, to this bar, to talk to our potential pastors, to our future pastors. Like, what's going to happen if they're struggling, Israel? Me and Israel were just thinking about the people. Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when one of our kids wants to get a hold of their pastors? Because sometimes kids want to talk to their pastors instead of their parents. I said, I'm so worried, Israel. Like, this is not right. This is not biblical. It's not right. At this point, we're thinking, Mike, does Mike not know what these people are doing? Like, where's the accountability for this?
So then I reach out to Pastor Patrick calls me, and we're like, we're going to set up a Zoom meeting with Pastor Eddie. And I'm like, okay, so then we don't want to tell our kids or discourage our kids. Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, so that day was a rainy day here in California in Bakersfield. So me and my wife go to the park in our car, and we go log on to the Zoom meeting. And Pastor Patrick, it was Pastor Patrick and Pastor Eddie on the Zoom call.
Who was the B1 dean
of the college, of B1 College. And he was like, hey, Israel, I have Pastor Eddie on here, and just want to know why you believe Crystal's employment is a lid on California growing. And I was like, okay, so then pretty much I let them know all my findings of what happened, how people are leaving, are being mistreated and stuff like that. And also, when we find out where she works and what type of employment it is. And this whole time, Pastor Eddie is not even looking at the camera. He's just looking, he's paying attention to other stuff, his computer. And so I briefly explained, it's probably like less than 5 minutes of explaining why I felt that it was a lid. So Pastor Eddie logs on and opens his mic, and he goes, okay, Israel.
Yells at us.
He goes, you have a spirit of a Pharisee he goes, you are the lid. You are the cancer to V1, Bakersfield. You are the reason why V1 is not growing. And I go, and just how Pastor Mike has been preaching on the cancer being cut off right now, you need to get cut off. And I can care less if you decide to leave.
So do you hear that? He says, just like Pastor Mike has been preaching. So this is what you have to understand about the system. Everything stems from the top all the way down. You hear him repeat. This is, again, the dean of V1 College, who is also, I believe he's still pastoring, I think in New York maybe, or maybe he's just focusing on V1 College. But imagine learning leadership from this person. Do you imagine how many hurt people are going to come from this type of leadership style? And it starts with Mike, and it's unchecked.
And then I try to
intervene. She tries to say, because she's feisty, so she tried to like intervene and try like to say something, but I'm stopping her. I'm no, let him speak. Like we're sure. He goes, hey, be quiet. He goes, if you guys even try to defend yourself, I'm ending this call right now. You guys gotta sit down and listen to what I have to say.
So should I entitle this an interview with a Pharisee?
Yes, yeah. There you go.
Well, anybody who doesn't agree with me is a Pharisee and a Jezebel. That's what they're.
Yeah. He starts telling me that
what you need to do.
What I need to do.
Religion,
Like,
spirit.
he goes, you should be ashamed of yourself
for even
thinking that about your leaders. Wesley is a humble, hardworking man, and which I agree, he is humble. He is, but he's not a leader. He is not a leader. You know, I love the guy. He's still to this day, I love him, but he has a lot of learning to do. And he called me cancer. He said I was a Pharisee. He just spoke life word curses over my life. Keep in mind, I came from a suicide background. You know, I wanted to commit suicide. I felt like I was no good. That day, when he said that, it brought me back to that day one that I felt like when I wanted to take my life. So if I wasn't strong in my faith, and he said, and he even admitted to him disrespecting people like this before, and then completely leaving. So if I wouldn't have been strong in my faith, my blood would have been on his hand. But thank God that I was strong in my faith, that I was into my word, that I was healed, that I was in my healing process, that I was strong in my faith, that I didn't act on that. But that day he spoke life word curses over me, and he discouraged me. And he goes, you know what you need to do? You need to invite Crystal and Wesley to a nice fancy restaurant, spend some money on them, and tell them what you thought about them and how you were wrong, and apologize to them. And I was like,
he goes, so then I tried to intervene, and that's when he told me to be quiet, that I wasn't allowed to talk. And he told Israel that he had a lot of learning to do from Wesley.
And Pastor Patrick did try to go on. He tried to defend us, and he tried to say, you know what, Israel and Ellie are strong pillars of the house. And he's like, no, they're not. He goes, you know what, they're still in the hospital. They're not pillars of the house. And
what's the hospital thing mean?
Hospital means pretty much you're being treated. You're like in the beginning stages. And so then I was thinking at that time, man, so if I'm in the hospital wounded, you're willing to kick me, my wife, and my 3 children out of church because I don't agree with them becoming pastors. You're going to kick me out in the hospital, and who cares about them? You're kicking me out of the hospital.
And by the way, this testimony right here that Israel is saying about the hospital, this is not a one-off. There are others who they've said these things to and have kicked them out of the church rather than doing what they say. We start in the hospital, then we become family, and then we become an army. Okay. So what they do is, instead of placing, the people who are hurt and wounded back into the hospital to heal and to be lifted up and to be encouraged in the word and through discipleship, they just kick them out. So this is not a one-off thing.
So that day, we were told to spend some money on them, to apologize for even thinking that about them. So immediately what we had to do was to text them and tell them, hey, I want to take you out to dinner. And we were so broken. My husband was...
I was shattered. I was shattered because, first of all, I was embarrassed that I allowed another man to speak like that to me, especially in front of my wife. And that because I was so drilled that I could not... You know, when they were so upset with me, when he was upset with me, I was like, man, just if he's upset with me like that, just imagine how my Heavenly Father feels. Just imagine how Jesus feels. He's probably disappointed in me because I'm a Pharisee, I'm a gossiper, I'm this, and I felt discouraged. And I remember we went to my room because he also brought up that I had never logged on to my V1 courses because I was in V1 college. To a certain point, I was in the lowest, which I was only paying like $14 a month, I think it was, and I was I was just giving videos. But
mind you, what he's talking about is I think he says it was like $14.99 or something like that. I took that course my first time doing V1 college, and it's just biblical literacy. Okay, so it's just videos strictly on biblical literacy and everything that goes into that. Okay, so he's not even in a mid grade or the leadership or the pastoral thing, but yet this professor, this pastor, this dean is putting him down because he hasn't clicked onto his V1 college biblical literacy class, which, by the way, is a self-paced class. And when I was in V1 college the second year, there were people that were, I mean, even I fell way back and had to like hurry up to get through some things because I mean, we have kids, we have work, we have our marriages, and then you're serving all throughout the week doing various things and in meetings. And so it's easy for somebody to fall back. But the fact that he was just in a biblical literacy class, and because Israel was willing to speak out of what was going on, it was wrong and out of place for Eddie to do that. It's abuse of power.
But I only logged on twice, and he brought that up because you're not even committed. You only logged on twice. So that day I came to after the Zoom, we didn't tell our kids anything. I went to my room and I tried to log on to the V1 college courses, but in reality, every time I would see him, I would want to punch the screen out. And I was like, man, maybe I do have because you're always told that you have a demon.
Yeah.
Maybe I do have a demon of Pharisee and anger because I want to punch this guy out right now.
Mm-hmm. So we left so discouraged from that Zoom meeting. We were devastated. We were broken. We thought we're so wrong. Like, wow, I can't believe we thought about that. Like, forgive us, Lord, for even thinking that about them. We texted immediately the leaders. We told them, hey, can we go out to dinner? And they said, yeah. We came back home. Israel comes home and he starts throwing up, has a massive headache, starts throwing up.
And of course, since we talked about having demons, she thinks I'm going through deliverance. And she's quietly praying over me in the restroom. Ow, ow. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling good. Get out of here.
The demon indoctrination. That's what he is explaining there. If we're sneezing or throwing up, or we're going through all these physical, ailments, not the fact that we're stressed, tired, overworked, filled with anxiety. It's not because of what they're going through. No, it's because they have a demon and they need deliverance. This is the indoctrination of this demon deliverance stuff that Mike and V1 has over the members.
And so while Israel is just really sad and discouraged, I text our friends, our really good friends that don't go to V1, that have done ministry for many years, and I tell them, hey, we need prayer. Can you guys pray for us? We just need encouragement. So they live 20 minutes away from our house, and they said, we can come over. I said, no, we don't want the kids to know anything. Can we go over? Anyways, we end up going to their house. We get there so discouraged. They see our face. But at this point, we just want prayer. We don't even want to say anything because remember, it's considered gossip. We're going to be gossiping again. Like, we feel like we can't even tell them what's going on because we messed up so bad already.
And this is part of silencing. And as you've seen, there's been members of V1 or people who watch Mike on a regular basis, how they have come and they have tried to silence me, and others that have exposed by saying that we're slandering, we're gossiping, we're lying. They come at us with all of this and not realizing that the things that people are saying is not gossip. It's not slander. We're not trying to cause disunity, but we're trying to share the testimony. And this is what Mike and V1, the leadership, does not want to happen. They don't want people to share their testimonies. And so they create sermons, they create teachings on the things that are happening right now, even as we speak. They're trying to figure out how they can come out with a teaching or a sermon. And of course they're going to say, well, we don't think of you guys like that. And, we're not talking about you guys, but really, subliminally, they really, really are. They are seeing everything that's being said and what's going on. And they're creating teachings and sermons and, Free Women Collective, Bible studies, on these things to counteract the things that are being said about them. And for those who are still in this NV1, they are believing that this is all demons, and this is the accuser of the brethren speaking, when really it's just real people who love Christ, who are telling their testimonies and want others in V1 to hear what is happening. And if these pastors and leaders really cared, then they would let us know who their accountability is. And instead of always having to go public about these things, we could go to their accountability and they can deal with them that way. But unfortunately, we have been unable to connect with anybody who is holding Mike Signorelli and V1 Church accountable. So for those who are saying that Link is Mike Signorelli's accountability, Bobby Bogard, Dwayne Vanderlock, Maxwell, that these are his mentors and his accountability, if that was true, then they would be wanting to respond and hear the stories of the various kinds of abuses. And I want to say now that if you are somebody who has witnessed or been abused themselves of any kind of any level within V1 Church, please reach out to me. I will send you a petition for your voice to be heard, another document where you can write what you witnessed and what you experienced, so that way your voice can be heard. Okay, let's keep going.
So then they're consistently telling me, please explain the situation to us. We know your character. We know how you guys are. You guys are not like this. What's going on? And I was like, no, I just need prayer. That's all I want. I was like, see if I have probably a demon of anger, of Pharisee. And they're like, and then by that time, my wife, she was like, well, this is what happened. And when she confesses, not confesses, but when she starts saying what we did, I'm kind of upset. Like, why are you gossiping? We were just talking about this, but I'm not saying nothing to her. This is just in my mind, like just upset with her because she's opening up. And at the time, I'm thinking she's gossiping again. And she was like, what? That's not like. You're right. You are not wrong for bringing that up. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, and they start speaking life over. She was like, that's not the way you rebuke someone. And like, my uncle's, her uncle's an amazing pastor, an amazing pastor. And she was like, but when he rebukes with love. Okay, so she corrects, rebukes, and he goes like, did he pray with you guys? And I know we didn't get prayed for, nothing. And so she spoke life into us. She and her husband, and they prayed over us, and man, we left. They read scripture to us, and we left so encouraged that day. And that day, we decided, you know what, we're leaving again. We're leaving. That's time. This time for good. But before we leave, we're going to finish our connect group. We had a connect group. We're leading a connect group for marriages.
And at this point, we're so sad because we're thinking, okay, we're leaving, but we're not going to be able to see our brothers and sisters anymore. Like,
and pushes me away. And I go, man, the Lord rebukes you. They knew our true heart. They knew our true personality. However we were. That they're like, hey, if you take us off the group chat as well. Brother Javi, he was like, take me off as well. Because they were deleting messages. When they were questioning, they would delete the message, and they would respond like, why did you delete this? Why did you delete their message? They didn't write anything wrong. Mm-hmm. It just started everything started crumbling down on her.
So then I told Israel, hey, we have to be honest with everyone. We're not, because we were so scared. If we say everything, we're going to discourage them. When she lied and said all this about us, I told Israel. So then everyone knows that they deleted us. We call a meeting up on our house. We invite everyone. There was about 50 people here at our house, and we tell them exactly what happened. Word by word, we read the text messages. And so everyone's like, we're left like, what do we do?
At this point, V1 has crumbled down in Bakersfield. There's nobody there. Everybody pretty much has pulled out.
Like 5 people.
And Pastor Eddie reaches out to everybody in the group chat. Hey, Pastor Josh, hey, I'm going to call people because we need to have an investigation on pretty much intimidation. Intimidating people. There needs to be an investigation being done on what happened, what was said.
There's this group chat going around.
There's a group chat going on, and we need to know what's going on. Trying to control the whole situation. Pastor Josh does reach out to me, and I'm like, no. I was like, I'm not going to speak to you unless Pastor Mike is there. And he's like, well, Pastor Mike is a very busy man, and his time is very valuable. And the message I wrote back, my time is also very valuable, and I want to speak to Pastor Mike and with you on there as well.
We're constantly said by Pastor Mike and Pastor Julie, and so we want to speak to them.
So then finally, Pastor Mike agrees to meet with us on a Zoom, and in this meeting, we're still kind of believing him. He starts saying that is not his heart.
He talks like for 45 minutes straight.
Yeah, we explained to him everything that happened, all the mistreatment, everything from Pastor Eddie to the beginning on why we left. We just gave him everything, and he said that he believes that we're given a counterfeit V1. But that's such a lie, because we find out later on how much he has mistreated people, how much his mother mistreated people, her old armor bearer, how she would mistreat her. And
there's no such thing as an armor bearer. That makes me mad. You carry your own stuff. I mean, it's nice to help people, but when you're telling me that these people have armor bearers, it's just showing me how utterly ungodly and unbiblical they are. We are not in the Old Testament.
Yes, and that's one thing that he would he'll speak about Moses a lot and how he does things, and he was just so very he tickled our ear. He knew exactly how, he's very good in his vocabulary and his how he speaks to people. So we're convinced, like, well, what do you want me to do? What do you think I should do? I think you need to speak to the people. people, they're left without a shepherd.
He lied and said that Crystal and Wesley were not going to be pastors. I don't even keep exact words. I don't even know these people like that.
I don't even know these people like that. And then he started blaming Pastor Patrick and Natalie that why they were saying that they were. He was like, it's their, they shouldn't be saying who's going to be pastors of V1 because they have no authority in that. Which we have messages that he had already made them pastors.
He had already,
a week before that.
A week before that, he had already introduced Crystal and Wesley as pastors of V1 Bakersfield in a pastor's chat, which we have that. But he lied to us.
He lied to us. We have it in recording, so that's why I said, Pastor Mike, you're a liar. You lied. You lied to us in our face, and you also lied to our people of Bakersfield in our house.
The people of Bakersfield that trusted him, that
and people still continue to believe your lies, and that's so sad. And I pray that you repent because you're gonna have to answer to God for that.
Yeah.
And
what do you want to say? Your concluding remarks. If you had an opportunity to express something to him, it sounds like that's some of what you're doing.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm going to stop there, but definitely you guys go watch and share the Love Agenda's video, full-length video on this. It's called Escaping V1, Breaking Free from Dysfunctional Cult. But I want to share with you because they mentioned a meeting. I'm going to first read an email that's from Ryan Hayward in V1. He's one of the contacts that was in charge of the refunds, because Mike Signorelli did promise them that all of them would be refunded. So before I play the snippets of the V1 Bakersfield meeting, I'm going to read this email. Okay. And this email, okay, I don't have a date for it, but I'm sure I can get it. Okay, so we hope this message finds you well. I have attached a screenshot of the 500 refund for your records. We write to address recent inquiries regarding refunds for donations made to V1 Church. As you may recall, in light of certain challenges and transitions within our California hub, we previously extended the opportunity for refunds to those who felt impacted by perceived leadership failures. So when you hear the snippets, that's not what was said, okay? There's just a lot of cleaning up that's being done, okay? Who felt impacted by perceived leadership failures or were considering leaving the church and were new believers, as it could be a potential barrier to them joining a real physical local church. This gesture was made in good faith with the intention of offering support and understanding during a time of change. However, it has come to our attention that some individuals are still seeking refunds almost 2 months after this offer was initially extended. We want to reiterate that the original terms of this offer were meant to be temporary and were provided as an act of goodwill and reconciliation. And at this point, it is important for us to clarify that we will no longer be able to accommodate refunds requests moving forward. While we understand that there may be lingering concerns or frustrations, seeking refunds at this juncture appears to be motivated by reasons unrelated to the original purpose of the offer. If you have any questions or require further clarification, please do not hesitate to reach out to us directly at josh@v1.church. We additionally ask that our personal phone numbers are not shared, as the original requests were all directed to this email address. As well, thank you for your understanding and cooperation. Now let's get to this meeting. 1 second. Let me open up. Let me open this up. Now, please keep in mind, if you're just getting in, the first thing that we listened to was a huge chunk of Israel and Nellie's testimony that was done last night. I just read an email from Ryan Hayward in regards to the refunds that Pastor Mike that Mike Signorelli stated that he would do. And now we're going into, and also a little bit of the replay of the midweek huddle. Let's see here. Sorry. And now I'm going to play snippets of this meeting. Now listen to the language. There is a lot of fake crying in this, a lot of Mike talking about himself, and this is not his heart. A lot of accusations going on. So let's go ahead and listen to it. Okay.
Because, you spent that time sowing your time into this church, or what you thought was this church, what you thought could become a campus. And you were kind of operating in this artificial V1, kind of like counterfeit V1 thing. And I can't give you back all the mornings that you woke up early in the brewery. I can't give you back all the evenings where you came into that church building and, tried to make it nice and brought people in. It just breaks me. I can't give you back that time, but I will tell you this. I'm not a user. I don't use people. That's not my heart. That's why I showed up to Loden. I was at Loden this morning. I had members of our team coming to my house picking up gear this morning. I'm in the church. I'm not a user. I don't use people. I serve with people. I sweat with them. We bleed together. We cry together. That's who I really am. So I just want to tell you, and I mean this, I will give you back every cent that you sow to this church financially. I'm not kidding. I want to prove to you how little I care about all that stuff. And so I don't know what you give. I don't check the giving record. I don't care what people give. Even for those of you who gave financially.
Here's the next one.
Told the board of directors of this church, I will do whatever it takes so that the people in California know.
I would love to know who the board of directors
because they just got a bad taste in their mouth. And so whatever you sowed, we'll look it up. We'll get the record and we will actually give you your money back. Now, I'm telling you that because I don't want somebody who's new in the faith. Because some of you guys, you might be new in the faith and maybe this was your first church or maybe you're just getting saved and you're like, man, these pastors, all they want is my money. They want me to serve. They never, they want me to show up. They want me to make them famous, make them successful, whatever. Like, guys, I don't know how else to tell you. Like, I'm still that dude that would sell my clothes so I could go to Colombia and preach a sermon to people on the side of a mountain. I don't want anything from you. A real shepherd is the one that wants to give to you, doesn't want to receive. That's my real heart. And so some of you, like, if it will settle it up in your soul, just reach out to Josh. Send him a message and say, Josh, I do want my money back. And I'm not going to judge you for that. I'm not going to think you're a lesser person. But seriously, I just want to know if that's the thing in your heart, the offense.
Do you hear that? If that's the thing in your heart, the offense. Isn't that like mind-blowing to you guys? Like, he doesn't truly understand and he's really not trying to relate to the people that was hurt in his organization. So now he's putting it back on them. If what's in your heart, the offense, I want to be the one to rip it out. I want to be the one to take it.
I want to pull that offense out of your heart and be like, hey, man, it was never about the money. It was never about it. Matter of fact,
If it was never about the money, then when those people sent emails to Ryan, then Mike, you should have approved them no matter how long it took. If that said, I'm from Bakersfield and I want my money back, they should have gotten their money. They should have never received that email from Ryan then. And to be honest with you, that email probably was from the top all the way down. He was told what to say. Now, keep in mind, these are people he's doing a leadership conference with Ruslan and John Maxwell.
Think about it. I never went to Bakersfield and said, guys, we're going to do a fundraiser and blah, blah, blah. I bought equipment for Bakersfield. It was my idea because I was in the background being like, man, I can't wait to get out there. The Lord showed me something for California. And Josh will tell you, I told my board, let's just buy the equipment and let's bring it out. So I'm so heartbroken because I felt like I was trying to get it to the next level, and underneath me, all this sin and all this stuff was going on.
That shows you his lack of leadership. that he didn't even know he's claiming he didn't even know what was going on, but he did, because Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie told them what was going on. And even if Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie had not told them what was going on, Crystal and Wes were in V1 college. They were in connection with Eddie. And so this is where, like, I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but this is where the lack of accountability is and the pointing of fingers are beginning. Because there's an empire that he's building. There's an empire and conferences and all this other stuff, but nobody's seeing these behind the scenes, closed door, backdoor meetings.
And so I just really, that was my last big thing I wanted to say is, like, if it's a stumbling block to you, please, I will give the money back. Well, even if you were like, man, I gave $1,000 total. I don't know who's new.
This meeting that they had was 3 hours. 3 hours of really Mike talking about himself.
That anybody calls me anything, that's cult-like behavior. And so we don't emphasize submission. We don't emphasize, matter of fact, we have mutual submission. You know, it's like we're accountable to each other. There's been times, guys, and I know this might be blowing.
This, by the way, is contrary to many of the teachings that Mike has done.
Your mind right now, but I want to say I'm sorry if you were made to feel like you had to honor somebody, but you didn't receive honor. I want to apologize to you if you felt like there was an inappropriate usage of titles and positions, because we don't do that, man. Yeah. We lead from the bottom up. We lead from the back, not the front. Like, we are servant-based leaders, man. And that grieved my heart when I heard that was going on. The other thing, too, is, when Natalie and Patrick said that Crystal and Wesley were going to become pastors, they had no right to do that, because I'm the only one that can do.
Now let's keep in mind the testimony that Nellie and Israel had. Mike himself said that he was going to place them as pastors over Bakersfield. So now he's lying. He's lying to members of V1 Bakersfield.
Determine who becomes a pastor. And I don't even know Crystal and Wesley like that. Wow. They have to go on a long journey with me. It's a whole thing. And one of the things about being a pastor is for me, when I come around people, they act completely different around me because they want to put their best.
There was a podcast that Mike did not that long ago. And he said the reason why people act differently with him is because he knows their secrets. Not because they want to put their best foot forward. That might be, yes. But for the most part, it's because he knows their secrets.
Foot forward. So I have to use a lot of discernment to determine who people really are. And it takes me a while. So
where was your discernment with Crystal and Wesley?
That's crazy to me. And let me say, we don't ever demand that people call. That's sacred to me, and it grieves me because nobody in V1 can outwork me. To determine who people really are, and it takes me a while. So they should have never been talked about as they're going to be pastors, this and this and this. We don't do that. And I just want to say,
even though Crystal and Wes themselves were telling people that they were going to be pastors. So where would they get that from?
Say that was wrong. So I'm sorry. I want to say, this whole meeting is not my attempt to get you to come back to V1. We're not about the numbers.
Mike didn't want to do the meeting in the first place. He was convinced by Nellie and Israel.
We're not about, whatever. I'm about to prove that towards the end of the meeting. Like, I'm here to create a safe, a place for healing, a place for restoration. So I'm sorry if that happened to you guys. That was inappropriate. Natalie and Patrick should have never talked that way. And really,
Now keep in mind, okay, because the next two things that I'm going to have you guys listen to is he is basically slandering and talking about Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie behind their back. They're not even there. Don't even know if they were even invited to this meeting, considering they were over V1 Bakersfield and answering to Mike Signorelli himself. So for those of you in V1 who's talking about gossip and slander and disunity and division and all this other stuff, this is a prime example of your pastor doing this himself.
Crystal Wesley should have been trained to be more humble, more servant-based. You know, I heard some stories about how Crystal, for example, wouldn't go to load in. And when we were in the brewery, you guys were going very early in the morning. It makes me want to cry because you love this.
It doesn't make you want to cry, Mike. And if you had heard these stories, and he only mentions one story, but then he says stories. So if you heard stories, why isn't it up until this point that you have reached out to Bakersfield, the people of Bakersfield, and talked to the congregation there? If you were so concerned, if you're such a great leader.
This church, you served, you gave your time. You woke up early in the mornings. That's sacred to me.
To the point
and
of
it
being
grieves
ill,
me because
they did.
Nobody in V1 can outwork me. To determine because it's creating so much confusion. Yes. How is this Mike and Joy's heart? Because this is creating so much division and so much hurt. And I want to tell you myself, that was not my heart. These things you guys were experiencing is not my heart.
But this is the thing. They've learned this from the leaders above, Mike. Because you're going to hear many testimonies of Mike treating people this way. You'll hear in Israel and Nellie's testimony that the way Crystal and Wes spoke to them was the same way that Eddie spoke to them. So this is the leadership unaccountability that is happening here. Is that he's saying it's not their heart. This is not the way they move. However, Crystal and Wes is actually a reflection of the leadership of V1 Church. Talking about Mike, Josh, Eddie. Because as you've seen and heard from Nellie and Israel's testimony, Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie, they cared enough to ask questions, to stop what they were doing, to make themselves available. But Mike slanders them and gossips about them and puts them down, though Pastor Patrick helped build the global community and did as Mike wanted him to do.
And that grieved me because I was like, man, I got my mind blown. I'm like, Lord, is this how it's going to feel when people were running around doing all this stuff saying, oh, this isn't Jesus' name? And Jesus like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Because I feel like that in this situation. And so those are the majors. Here's what I see. I see pride. I see Jezebel. I see fear. I see Patrick and Natalie maybe feeling like, the root of rejection. What happens if I tell Josh I'm failing? Will he still receive me? Am I going to get kicked out as campus pastor? I see, Crystal and Wesley, we want to start a church so bad, we'll do whatever. And so let me kind of give you the Father's heart, because here's a situation that I think will help you guys understand everything a little bit more. So Crystal and Wesley gave information to Pastor Eddie. Pastor Patrick and Natalie.
You see how he paused there and decided not to go further? Isn't that suspicious?
Gave information to Pastor Eddie, and then
so they did communicate, right? Because Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie did tell.
I didn't believe Crystal and Wesley things. Now, Pastor Eddie, who's the dean of our college, was thinking, based on everything I said, if that's true, I need to rebuke these people. I really need to help them understand how wrong they are. Well, here's the mistake they made, that Eddie made. Eddie assumed he was getting good information from 4 leaders. So when I talked to Nellie and Israel and got the full picture, I had to go back to Eddie and say, Eddie, I know you would never believe this because it's such an unusual situation, but you got bad information from 4 leaders.
Do you hear that though? He said when he talked to Nellie and Israel. But when did you talk to Nellie and Israel before? And why didn't Eddie do his due diligence in talking to the other congregants? Like, why is it that Natalie and Patrick are being shoved under the rug, under the bus for something that Josh knew, Mike knew, Eddie knew, but it's all put on Patrick and Natalie? I don't understand that.
Leaders, and what you thought needed a rebuke actually needed love and compassion and needed the Father's heart. And you were wrong. When I said that, Eddie cried. Eddie was like, what have I done? I thought I was doing
the cover up is thick.
Right thing, Pastor Mike. I want to get a hold of Nellie and Israel right now. I can't believe it. I said, Eddie, I said, this is what makes me the lead pastor, is because I'm the most wise, because I didn't believe Patrick and Natalie, and I didn't believe Crystal and Wesley. I went overboard.
He's the most wise because he didn't believe Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie and Crystal and Wes. Though Crystal and Wes were lying, well, at least Crystal, and Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie was trying to reveal the truth of what was going on because of what Nellie and Israel was telling them. But Mike is the most wise. You guys still following what I'm putting out there for you guys in his own words?
To them, and I spoke to Nellie and Israel, and because I was able to discern on a deeper level, we were able to uncover the truth. And so I said the lesson we all learned in this situation is greater oversight and greater discernment, and also not believing these leaders. And the Bible says you'll know them by their fruit. Well, what's the fruit of Crystal and Wesley? What's the fruit of Natalie and Patrick? Because those were your 4 leaders. 2 of them were.
I'm going to tell you something. Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie had been in V1 since 2021. And now all of a sudden, because of Bakersfield, now they're all these things. If you don't know the history of V1, if you haven't looked into it, if you hear him, you won't quite understand what is going on, and you'll just accept what he's saying.
Pastors, 2 of them were not. The fruit of it is every time I would draw people, Mike Signorelli, because I'm preaching online, I'm saying Bakersfield, this and this, I would draw them, and they would come to the church. You guys would draw them, you would invite them, and then all of a sudden, what happens? One round, the people leave. Then more people come. Another round, more people leave. Then another round, more people. What's the fruit? The fruit is division. The fruit is confusion. The fruit is hurt. The fruit is wood. So you'll know them by their fruit. So, hey, I told Crystal Wesley, I don't care if you can justify what you did. I told Natalie and Patrick, I don't care if you can justify what you did. The fruit of it, saying all these.
Mike is a liar. He is a liar. I've heard that Crystal and Wes are still in V1 and that they're even mentoring. Now, if you can confirm that, please let me know in the chat. Because that's not okay. He's a liar. Let me see what this one is. This might be a repeat.
In other words, they thought they were doing the right thing, but they weren't. And that's Patrick and Natalie, that's Crystal Wesley, just like Eddie. Eddie started crying. He was like, I didn't mean to hurt him. I literally thought, based on everything 4 leaders told me, these people need to be rebuked harshly. And when I told him the truth of this situation, Eddie started crying. Then
All right, so let's go to the midweek huddle. The midweek huddle, it was with Josh. I believe Heather Wrigley was there as well. And this was global. This was uploaded to the YouTube, so I am using it under the fair use along with the global gathering. The midweek huddle is dated 3/26 of 24, and the global gathering is April 4th of 2024. Okay, so what you're going to hear is you're going to hear Pastor Josh.
Natalie over the last couple months, and we believe that this is the time. So Pastor Natalie, she worked in kids.
Now, keep in mind of everything that Mike just said at Bakersfield and all the trash he talked about them.
For a season, and then Pastor Patrick and Natalie became Long Island pastors, and then they became the online pastors, and we're going to be making another transition with them into their next area of their calling and purpose in their ministry. And so what
Josh here is lying. He made it seem like to us that Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie were you can't tell from his language that they were actually no longer going to be like in V1 that he used language like no longer having a seat at the table, and sometimes you're going to sit at the table and sometimes you're not going to sit at the table, and Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie are no longer sitting at the table, and we honor them and we respect them for all that they did, and now we're going to help them with their transitioning. All of this, you guys, is a lie. How he set it up is a lie. Now Josh is the profilier of the house. Again, he is the executive pastor. He is also a professor of the V1 college, and he has groomed basically everyone, filled their egos, admired people before he starts, and basically took people off of the offense before he begins what he's saying now. But everything that he is saying here, they did not help. They were not helping them with the transition into their new purpose or whatever it is that he was saying.
What we're going to be doing is transitioning a new leader into the online campus. And our whole goal and our whole part of even doing this is that we would be the church that continues to properly place people in exactly where they're meant to be. I don't know exactly where I cut off, but I'll go back. So I was talking about proper placement and with Pastor Patrick and Natalie, and we had a meeting with Pastor Patrick yesterday, and we both felt it was as we're going on this season of like properly placing people in the best that we possibly can, we believe that it was mutually agreed upon that he would step out of the online pastor.
This was not as cordial as he's making it seem. He's lying.
To another role, into a different direction, and we would bring someone else in as we continue to grow the online campus. And I know Pastor Patrick and Natalie, they were over kids for a season. They became the Long Island pastors for a season. Then they moved into the online campus pastors, and now they're transitioning to something else. And so when things like this happen, I just want to make sure you guys hear, like, these things are always in terms of how do we properly place every single person on our team into the right place, including you guys, including myself, including, like, Heather just made a massive move.
When you talk about proper placement, I think Mike, Eddie, and Josh and all the other leaders need to step down because they are not in their proper placement.
From director of operations to director of next steps. And that's a very big and also difficult transition. And when things like this happen, our identity can be the thing that's like, wait, I'm known as a director of ops. And so what if this looks like it's a demotion? What if this looks like it's something changing? It's like in our flesh, when we make changes like this,
they do a lot of
immediately start to think, how's this going to
words
look?
in between
and it's like,
what they're
I'm
trying
here to
say,
tell you,
but
if the things that we do,
He
the
really
changes
talks
that we
about a
make
lot
in a
of
church
nothing.
are always for the best
What do they
interest
call it?
of you
Word
guys
salad?
and the best interest of the people. And so even for me as the exec pastor, I've even had talks with Pastor Mike about my role changing in the future for
It
what's
should.
best for the church.
It
I'm like,
should.
hey, in 5 years, our church, Pastor Mike as well. We want nothing but the best for every single pastor on our staff, whether that means they are a campus pastor somewhere and then they change to be a different campus pastor, or they, or their role completely changes to not even being a pastor anymore. Whatever that would be, our goal is that we look at you guys first and say what's best for the kingdom, what's best for the church, and as we co-labor together, that we would all walk in humility, that we would all walk with language of the kingdom, that we would look to fear God most.
They
And
don't
so
fear God.
groups for all those people, like, they serve so well in this capacity for the season that they did in terms of the online. And we know that they're going to continue to move into what God has best for them. And I truly believe that the hand of God is all over their life.
Oh, it
And
is.
he's
The
over
hand
the
of God is
online
over
community.
Pastor
He's over
Patrick and
V1
Pastor Natalie's
Church.
life.
And something that, as we're looking at into the future, the thing I want to challenge you guys about is when I said God calls you from your own future, what you guys need to become are people that do the same for others. Or sleep. He only cares about being fed and being nurtured.
All right. Now that you've heard Josh and his explanation of this, this is from 4/4/24. Josh is in attendance at Pastor Mike's house. This is Mike, and Heather Wrigley is right next to him.
There's a lot of things right, but there are also a lot of things that I felt like needed to be corrected because, quite frankly, it wasn't a reflection of my heart. And I think for some of you, if you were able to spend a week with me or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you might be kind of shocked, like, oh, wow, this is what it really is. Now I get it. Because sometimes, unfortunately, as our church has grown, sometimes there are leaders under me that do and say things that are not a reflection of how I would actually do them or say them. And sometimes,
but we also know that there was a teaching that Mike did where he said that he wanted, in order to honor Mike, is to talk like Mike. It's to move like Mike, right? And so these leaders were in position long enough to do Mike's will. And it wasn't until things got called into question and they stopped doing Mike's will that he then began to talk poorly about them behind the scenes. And this isn't even behind the scenes. These meetings were public. So he's talking about his heart and how they didn't know his heart. But again, Crystal and Wes were taught by them, not Pastor Patrick and Natalie, but by Mike and Eddie and Josh. And so they did reflect his heart. The problem is that none of them, Mike, Eddie, Josh, Crystal, and Wes, reflected the Father's heart in this whole situation. And what Mike does is he lifts up Heather and makes her feel good and calling her a friend and tells his whole story, and people are enjoying their storytelling and stuff like that. And in between the weaving of what Mike and Heather is saying, Mike is slipping in slander and gossip and other things that are going on in this meeting, and it's completely going over people's heads of what he's doing because he's crafty.
that can be confusing. So just to be very, very blunt and very, very transparent, there's been many of you from the V1 Global Online who have expressed that when you joined V1 College, that you felt like things that I was teaching in our leadership college were very different than things that you encountered in V1 Church Online. And you started to feel a dissonance or a disconnect. And you were saying, man, I hear Pastor Mike teaching. I go to all the lectures and the Zooms, but then I'm seeing what the V1 Church Online is like, and it's not the same. And so obviously, because of the law of the lid, that is the result of leadership. And so there did have to be a very necessary transition that happened here. Now, at the same time, I do want to honor Pastor Patrick and Pastor Natalie for all their contribution and all their hard work and for all the things that they did in their tenure in this particular campus. As you know, Pastor Josh had communicated this in another meeting with V1 Global Online. They had also served in different capacities. And one of the things that I always say is they were our V1 Long Island campus pastors, and Pastor Natalie helped with kids for a duration of time. Is the seat at the table could change, but the question is whether or not you're still seated at the table. And so like right now, I'm the lead pastor. And even though I think I have a lot more years in me, I have to prepare myself that I will not always be the lead pastor. And I know that's weird to even say that this early on, but we don't have any idolatry. When the time comes and it's the best thing for our church, and maybe I'm retirement age, then there will be a passing of the baton for my position, because we don't have any idolatry around position. Pastor Josh may not always be the campus or what are you? Executive pastor. We don't even know what title he has around here. He's just sitting on my couch hanging out during our meeting. But yeah, he may not always be here. And so, he may not always be in that capacity. You may be, our V1 Mars campus pastor, when that debuts or something, yeah, sign him up, he says. So like Heather's a great example of, Heather's a great example of, she is now our next. And let me tell you why. I absolutely love this. And we're going to talk about team, because we also do things through team. So Minister Peter has not only went through V1 College, but he also shoulders leading the prophetic group with Pastor Josh. And so he's raised up prophets. I mean, he has an entire Zoom all over the world filled with people that he's ministering to. And he's somebody that we designated as a leader in our house and a minister. And so Minister.
Do you hear how Peter was selected to be a pastor over global? Because he went through V1 College. Just like Crystal and Wes went through V1 College. Just like Jasenia and what's his name? Of the pastors of the V1 Miami. Just like them, they all went through V1 College. And so this is what they're doing. They're having people go to V1 College, pay this money. Then they, for leadership or whatnot, they do the pastoral stuff. And then they become members of V1. And this is what Crystal and Wes did. So that is just one example of mistreatment and how they are going about. These people are 100% unqualified to become pastors. V1 College does not have qualified pastors that come out of them. It is not a certified or accredited college. You cannot take this education to another church or get another job that has to do with leadership or pastoral. Like, it's not a legitimate college. So again, why am I saying this? Because I want you guys to see the leadership and how they work according to their own words, and why it would be absolutely dangerous to go to any leadership conference where Mike Signorelli or anyone from V1 is connected to. He is not a good leader. He is not a good person to learn from when it comes to leadership. You have heard plenty of testimonies of how they have treated their congregants, all the way from Josh and Mike and Eddie and Crystal and Wes. Peter has his own. There are people who will talk about Peter and what he has done. And actually, Peter was the one that early on I told you guys that he put in the global WhatsApp that if anyone was to reach out for prayer, they would have to go through the V1 systems. If you see anyone talking poorly about the leadership, or you're not supposed to pray for people unless you've been released, not to be holding any meetings, because this opens up the door to Jezebel. This is 100% witchcraft. And I had a whole conversation with Peter about that as well. At that time, I was still drinking the Kool-Aid. So my conversation with him, although was eye-opening, was also very honoring to him and respectful. But I want you guys to understand that not only this is a systematic issue with V1. And so there are people out there right now, they are saying, I think Mike did a whole other thing, like you don't have to answer to demons and stuff like that. And it's like, take accountability for the things that you have done and the things that you have said and hurt people, instead of blame shifting. And that's what he has done, him and his team. Even his mother has caused damage to people. And so open your eyes, people. This is a real thing that's happening. And if your pastors are going to learn from Mike Signorelli, I would be concerned about that. I would be very concerned if you hear your pastors say that they've met Mike Signorelli, that they are learning from him about leadership, that they've gone to any leadership conference where he is at. I would be very, very concerned. So I'm going to leave it here. Go ahead and watch the Love Agendas video that he did with Mike, or not Mike, Nelly and Israel on their testimony. And I'm also going to upload this to my own YouTube space, just because I know it's a long video and has lots of information that maybe you want to go back and re-listen to. All right. God bless you guys.